Hi, welcome to Your Checkup, where we bring topics from the doctor's office.
You didn't give me a 3, 2, 1.
Hi, welcome to Your Checkup, where we bring conversations from the doctor's office to your ears. I'm Ed Dulesky, family medicine resident in Philadelphia area.
Why am I laughing?
It's great that we have a pre-recorded version of this, so that this is all fine, and we can just kind of warm up here. Hi, welcome to Your Checkup, where we bring health topics from the doctor's office to your ears. On this podcast, we try to bring medicine closer to its patients. I'm Ed Dulesky, a family medicine resident in the Philadelphia area.
And I'm Nicole Rufo. I'm a nurse.
And we're so excited that you can be here with us today. And today we are going to talk about feeding and pooping in the baby.
Our two favorite things.
Two favorite, love to eat, love to poop. And so we're going to talk about that in babies, though. And Nicole is going to serve as our content expert, and I'll try to add in things as I can with the knowledge that I have, but she's going to be teaching me as much as you guys. And this is funny, not to date this too much, but I'm on the mom and baby service now, so I have lots of conversations about these days.
Oh, excellent content. Yeah,
it's great. All right. So you have a new baby, and you're thinking about how do I give them nutrition? Like, you just did all this work for 9 months, and now they're out in the real world. And what do they start eating? And if you hear in the background, that's our puppy, Ollie.
He's right on cue.
That was great. Okay. So, Nick, what's a baby eating?
So the baby is only eating either breast milk or formula.
Okay.
Exclusively for the first 6 months.
Got it.
Now, which we can get more into this later in the episode, your pediatrician at some point might recommend starting like a puree or something before 6 months. This is not a parenting podcast. We're telling you the recommendations from the American Academy of Pediatrics.
Right. All of this still coming from healthychildren.org.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. First 6 months, breast milk or formula. I will say, I think the AAP recommends breast milk if you can.
Mm-hmm.
Something I've been seeing is a challenge in the first couple days, like days 1 and 2, of moms being worried about breastfeeding. Is that common?
I would say so, yeah.
They seem worried about being
their supply coming in, and
yes, the supply is a big thing.
Keeping their supply up.
Yes, and we were talking a lot in the hospital about like day 3 and 4 being a little bit more, that the supply will come in. But unfortunately, a lot of people in that new postpartum period kind of flip over if they're supplementing with formula. They're like, oh, well, this is working so much better. Why don't I just do this? It doesn't have to be all or nothing, right? But it might be nice to keep trying a little bit. So to round up this, exclusive breastfeeding and formula, 6 months. So now we're hoping to talk about some tips and tricks about breast milk. What sorts of things do you have to talk about maybe storing it, managing the breast milk? Like, let's say mom isn't around and she's not like a milk factory 24/7, and there are more people in the house that are going to help. What thoughts do you have there?
Well, if we're just talking about breast milk, and if mom is pumping in addition to just, straightforward breastfeeding, baby to the boob, there are different ways to store your breast milk and how you should store your breast milk. It's recommended from the AAP that if you're pumping, they do this, what they call the rule of 4s. So straight after you pump the breast milk, it can sit for about 4 hours at room temperature, and then you can move it to the fridge for about 4 days and then freeze it. It is safe to freeze for up to 12 months, but make sure that you're dating it time if you want to, and then when you're taking out the frozen milk, use the oldest ones first. And then when you do take it out of the freezer or even the fridge, with breast milk, it's not recommended to use the microwave, although it might be, the quickest way, and your baby's screaming and you just want to do it quickly. But One, it's not going to be heated evenly, and they kind of refer to them as hot spots in the milk. So you could, like you test it on the back of or on your wrist and it feels fine, but then that's not the temperature of the entire bottle.
Everywhere.
And microwaving the breast milk actually changes the composition of human milk, so it's not as nutritious.
Okay.
So you can get a breast milk warmer.
So it's like something you can purchase?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know that it's something insurance covers. Like they'll cover a breast pump, but I don't believe that they cover a bottle warmer. I mean, it's worth asking about.
It totally is. Yeah, that's one. It's like, you just gave birth, you're just getting settled. You can ask about a breast pump. I mean, you may have an insurance that allows you to get one from the hospital and you don't have to worry about buying it. So ask more questions than fewer. I've been telling people that you're not a nuisance.
Ask about it and then they say no and then you buy one and whatever.
Right. But you never know what resource you have until you ask. And, people are there. They're getting paid to help you. And so definitely ask. So breast pump, ask. We're not sure about a breast warmer being covered, but it could be a valuable thing. I mean, aside from a microwave or a breast warmer, is there another way to safely and reliably warm up?
Looks like you can get a bottle warmer for about like $30 to $40 on Amazon.
Okay.
So it seems,
put it on the registry. If you're
put it on your registry.
If you're someone who's having a baby shower, and you're celebrating this, put it on the registry.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. There we go. Live research. We're doing the most for you.
And if you can't swing a bottle warmer, which is fine because people have been breastfeeding and giving their baby breast milk long before bottle warmers were a thing, you can set the bottle in like a cup or a bowl of warm water until it heats up. I don't know.
Like you're defrosting your chicken.
Like you're defrosting your chicken.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that sounds great. I mean, it sounds convenient to leave it in the fridge. I don't know how many people freeze it. Maybe they do. And
a lot of people freeze it.
Lots of people freeze. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's breast milk. And then if we're going formula, oftentimes it'll come in like the powder that you mix with water. They do have ready to feed bottles, but they're a lot more expensive.
Okay.
So when you're mixing the formula with the water, you follow the directions right on the back of the bottle or the box. And then typically it's only recommended, and this is from the CDC that I found this, to have it at 2 hours for room temperature for formula. And then you can like make a big batch kind of for the day if you have an idea of how many ounces your baby will take throughout the day, and save it for 24 hours in the fridge.
Okay. That sounds great. Yeah. And I would just add a quick note that pay special attention to the mixing of the formula.
Yes.
Because I have seen some instances where people, unfortunately, maybe not getting enough nutrition from the formula because it wasn't mixed quite right. So
don't try to cut it with more water to save it. I know it's expensive, but
and to that end,
those measurements are there for a reason. And if your baby's getting too much water, that's an issue. And then if your baby's not getting enough nutrients, they're not growing, and that's their only job at this point is to get calories and to grow.
Another reason to ask is because maybe there are programs out there that you may qualify for if you ask your doctor or healthcare clinician, and maybe they have social work involved. There are several different ones. WIC comes to mind. Maybe I'm not sure if that's a national program, but it is.
Well, it's like state dependent, but
okay.
Yeah.
It comes to
mind.
mind.
And WIC doesn't, there are other factors besides your like salary that go into WIC, especially if your baby needs like a specialty formula or they have some kind of crazy allergy free formula, like something like that, if that comes up. And I know there's like the stigma with WIC, but get your baby's formula however you can get it. And some people, like I have had people in the past who have said to me, oh, well, like, I do this for work or do that for work. I don't think I would qualify just based on their salary alone. And then they would. So it's always, it's one of those things it's worth looking into.
Yeah. Ask. Please ask.
Okay. I do want to talk about bottle propping, which seems oftentimes that it might be a popular thing for people to do, but it's definitely not recommended and can be very dangerous. And bottle propping is what it sounds like. You're propping the bottle in your baby's mouth, either like on a pillow, against a toy, whatever, so that it's not your hands feeding the baby. And, you know, it seems really convenient and you can prop the bottle and your baby can eat and you can do whatever. But especially when your baby's a newborn, it's really dangerous because if they start choking or coughing or whatever, they don't have that neck strength yet to be able to like move their head away from the bottle. They can't grab the bottle and take it out of their mouth, and then they can choke, and
just bad news.
So don't bottle prop.
No bottle propping. Mm-hmm. Great. Something that we won't do. So then tell me about a newborn. Generally, they're supposed to feed kind of every 2 to 3 hours, but there are also other ways that you can figure out how they are hungry. Mm-hmm. Can you show us a couple things to look at for what they might look like if they are communicating to you that they're hungry?
Yeah. So usually your baby, when they're a newborn, they'll show signs that they're hungry about every 2 to 3 hours. And then as they get older and they're eating more, and you'll notice that they'll be sleeping more through the night because they won't be hungry every 2 to 3 hours.
So it does end.
It does end. Your baby will. There's another dog out there.
He gets very excited guarding the door.
He's protecting the palache.
Oh, almost.
Ollie, come here. Come here. Best boy.
Okay. Phenomenal. All right, now he's right here with us, doing it with us. So babies let you know that they're hungry by doing what?
So they'll show some cues that they're hungry. The biggest, probably most common one I would say is what's called rooting, where the baby is shaking their head from back and forth. They'll sometimes they'll stick their tongue out. A lot of times once your baby maybe gets, not so much in the newborn, but once they get a little bit older, they'll stick their hands in their mouth. Yeah. Things like that.
I would echo that early on. The most important thing is the baby eating and growing. And so that is the priority in the beginning. So going at the most 4 hours overnight is the thought. Definitely ask your doctor their opinion, but 4 hours is kind of the limit. And you do oftentimes wake your baby up to prioritize feeding. And so that's something to think about there. Mm-hmm. So we speed forward ahead in life to about the 6-month mark, where now we're thinking about more than just formula and breast milk, because up until this point, it has been exclusively that, mm-hmm. with a notable absence of water. Mm-hmm. So no water for the first 6 months. Is that right?
That's the recommendation.
Okay. So then what happens around 6 months? What can you start thinking about?
The general rule of thumb is around 6 months / when your baby starts taking solids, you can start introducing small amounts of water. And again, when exactly to introduce solids or anything other than formula or breast milk, you can talk about with your pediatrician. Mm-hmm. General rule of thumb is 6 months. There sometimes are things that they'll tell you when it's a safe time for your baby that you can start maybe earlier if you wanted to. But again, not a parenting podcast.
Right.
We're just going off of the general recommendations.
General cookie cutter recommendation. Mm-hmm. Think about 6 months for eating, but not every kid is the same. Are there certain things that are assessed to see if the baby's ready to eat food?
Regardless of however many months they are, there are a few things to assess the readiness of your baby, because sometimes, you hit 6 months and you're just not ready. And a couple things are, the main thing is, can they hold their head up? Because you want them to be sitting upright, have that neck strength and trunk control to sit upright and be, in a good position to eat.
Yeah, imagine yourself rotting on a couch and just trying to eat laying down.
It's like us last Saturday.
You might aspirate a little bit. So you have to think about that, right? So the baby's head has to be up, strong neck, good neck.
And then are they And then are they opening their mouth when food comes to them? You know, if you try to feed them and they kind of just really reject it, maybe it's just not the time to try.
Okay.
When you are introducing it and feeding it to them, can they, like, do they have that swallow down? Can they move the food from the spoon into their mouth, down their throat to swallow it? It's not something that's just...
That feels like such a complicated motion that we take for granted.
I know. And it is going to be weird. And as you introduce new foods, a lot of times babies will like have this kind of reaction where it looks like they're choking and they're just kind of like learning to swallow that new food or that new texture.
Yeah,
or whatever.
What were they used to before?
Yeah, just milk.
Yeah, all liquid diet.
Mm-hmm.
They're juicing for 6 months.
And then the other one is, it's another one of those things. It's not like a hard and fast rule, but it's, is your baby big enough? So generally after your infant doubles their birth weight, which usually happens around 4-ish months of age, then they might be ready for solid foods, which is why we say, you know, general rule of thumb is 6 months, but then there are some instances where your pediatrician will most likely say that you can start some form of solid food, most likely in like a puree.
Oh, okay. So
version.
they're not, it's not steak and potatoes that they are starting.
No, this is like the baby food things.
Got it.
Yeah. No steak and potatoes yet.
Great. But it would be a shame if anyone was allergic to steak and potatoes. Sorry for all you people out there.
Would be.
So then what about allergies? Is there a commentary on that you, in your experience or reading, came up with?
Yeah. So according to the AAP, there is no evidence that waiting to introduce your baby to whatever foods beyond that 4 to 6 month age will prevent a food allergy. I think at one point in time, it was kind of a thought amongst parents that if you wait until however many months or years or whatever to say introduce your baby to peanuts, it would decrease the likelihood that they would have an allergy, but that's not true.
Great. So around 12 months comes another change in the baby's diet, which would be what?
So this is when it's recommended to start to introduce cow's milk, either whole or 2%. The main reason you want to wait is because cow's milk actually lacks iron, which can lead to an iron deficiency anemia. And it also has a lot more protein than your breast milk or formula would have, which is not great on fresh newborn kidneys.
So this becomes another option at 12 months, but like people don't need to switch to one of these options, but it becomes another option for them, right? That's kind of what I'm
like
gathering.
If your kid's a year old and you're still breastfeeding,
like that's great.
And that's what
fine
you want
and
to
dandy.
do, then yeah.
But now you have another option for all that, that caloric intake, that nutrition. It's there now.
And if you are giving your child cow's milk, whole milk is always recommended first because kids still need a higher fat content for your brain development. And it actually helps, the higher fat in your diet helps to absorb fat soluble vitamins, and not just like from milk, just anyone, you know, like we all need fat in our diet because it helps absorb those vitamins, and they're really important when you're that young and still developing.
Great. And sometimes, you know, it might be nice to supplement with iron-rich foods because that risk doesn't go away at a year. I think it becomes more tolerable. And so I see you have written here that cereals that are iron fortified are great options, and the most common being Cheerios. But it turns out that cereal isn't all cereal. Like the cereal for breakfast for adults is different, right, than for babies.
Yeah. So they do make like specific baby cereal, which I'm pretty sure is just like oatmeal kind of like ground up and made for a baby, or like a rice cereal if it's not something that's oat based. So when we do start to introduce cow's milk, sometimes kids will really like it and that's all that they're going to want to drink all day, every day. But it really should be included in a diet, again, with more iron-rich foods. And it's recommended to only have about 2 cups or 16 ounces a day. Once kids are starting to have more than 24 ounces in a day, that has also been associated with this iron deficiency anemia. If they're not also eating other sources of iron in their diet. And oftentimes if, you're drinking milk all day and that's kind of what you're filling up on and not eating other things with iron, that risk for the iron deficiency anemia does not go away.
So, I mean, if we're incorporating cereal to help fortify the iron, is there a certain way to deliver it into the baby's body? Like, are we putting it in the bottle? Are we putting it on a spoon? How are we doing this?
So again, like how the formula has special mixing instructions on the bottle, so will the cereal, and you can mix that up and give it to your baby on just a spoon, and they would, eat it that way. There are certain times when it would be appropriate to put the cereal in the bottle of formula or breast milk. And, sometimes if your baby has reflux, but those times, if that does happen, your pediatrician will be talking to you and guiding you on that.
Well, that sounds amazing. And so we're going to kind of transition, if you think it's okay, to considering what the outs for the baby are.
Yeah, we talked about the ins.
And this is how we kind of formulate the visit.
Talk about the outs.
We talk about the outs. One of the most common questions that I've gotten on this mom and baby service and just in practice in general, and I'm sure you have too, is my baby eating enough? And the one piece I've taken away from this is we check the weight for an overall arch of, is your baby eating enough? But early on, the actual question to ask is your baby peeing and is your baby pooping? Because if they are, they're likely eating enough. Do you agree? Yeah. In a newborn, just to comment on peeing here a little bit before we get to poop, newborns have just about as many pees as for as many days as they've been around. First day, 1 pee is normal. Second day, 2 pees are normal. More is also normal. So don't make yourself crazy over that. But that's the general rule of thumb that we're going with. But when we have babies, we have poop. Can you talk to us a little bit about poop?
Yes, I would love to talk to you about poop. So every baby is going to have their first poop, which is called the meconium, either in the hospital or wherever you've had your baby.
Usually first 24 hours.
First 24 hours. And this meconium is sterile. So it's actually not going to be very smelly. So you can't start bragging that your newborn doesn't have smelly poops, because
my poop doesn't stink.
Yeah, it's gonna. Get ready. And the reason why it's not smelly yet is because their intestines are not colonized with bacteria yet. And this happens with the first feeding. So then your poop's going to get stinky. So it's not going to last very long.
So you just have one to enjoy of probably thousands.
Yep.
That will be coming your way. Okay. So then you tell us, oh God, here we go. The mustard talk.
The mustard.
So then after the meconium, that's when it's okay to have a black tarry stool. I would pretty much say that like after that, that's something to run by your doctor.
Yeah.
But tell me more about the range of baby poop colors and consistencies that we're comfortable with.
Yeah. So if you didn't know, your newborn's poop is not going to look like ours. Ideally the brown.
Right, like because
brown log.
We talk about it every day. We celebrate it, and we know
we celebrate poops in this household. So, your baby's newborn poops are going to look a little mustardy, and there's no other way to describe it.
Brown mustard,
specifically the Dijon variety.
Yeah. Is Dijon brand or is that the
Dijon,
style?
The style.
So we're not like up against big Dijon here.
No.
Okay. Any other thoughts about what a comfortable poop looks like for us? You mentioned Dijon colored mustard, and now that's ruined for all of us.
I still love mustard. Yeah, so the breastfeeding poop will typically look a little more seedy.
What does that mean?
Like seedy.
Like the like the texture.
Yeah, like when you get, and we're going back to mustard because everything goes back to mustard. like the mustard with like the seeds, or you get
So
like a ground
literal-
mustard. That's what it
little
looks like.
tiny, like that consistency is in there. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah.
And then usually, I'm sure there is a reason for this. The formula fed babies are sometimes a little less watery, a little more pasty, but generally it's yellowy, mustardy tan, plus or minus seedy.
Okay. So similar in colors.
And in reality, all of the earth tones are normal.
All the
So
earth
it'll
tones.
be yellow, brownish, greenish. Sometimes might depend on what baby's eating. If you're breastfeeding, sometimes it'll change based on what mom's eating, and then given to the baby via the breast milk, and
Right.
all of that good stuff. Crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Baby poop.
Baby poop. But then what you should be concerned about, white, red, and then black outside of the meconium. Those are ones that you should bring up, and that's what your doctor's for. You got to bring it up to them if you notice anything different, because at the end of the day,
you should know what's normal for your child, and you'll get to know that as you get to know your baby. You'll get to know how their poop is, and then usual, like we would say, consistency, and then how often your child is pooping, because sometimes you'll get the kid who poops like clockwork every single day, and then sometimes you get a kid that poops once a day, every other day. As long as you know what's normal for your child, then if that becomes not the norm anymore, then it might be something to bring up to your pediatrician.
amazing. Just a small commentary on other things that come out of the diaper. I know we mentioned red here.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes in baby girls, because they have the hormones and they were exposed to the hormones from their mom, they actually can have, what's best described as like a mini period, a shining of the shedding of their uterus. And so it's not abnormal for a baby girl in the first few weeks of life to maybe have a little red in the diaper because of that discharge and some of that physiologic change that's happening in her new environment. Feel free to bring it up, but it is a common thing that happens. And so if it's mixed in the diaper, it might be tough to differentiate between that and the poop.
Figure out where it came from, kind of thing.
Yeah, tough, but it's something to think about. There also may be some discharge from a similar hormonal process, which we're telling people when we see them, but you may have been half asleep when someone was telling you this in the hospital. So worthwhile to say it again.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Your brilliance really shines through in this episode. And I'm so grateful that we're doing this together, and so happy that we might be able to share this with you, our listeners, and that you may be more up to date on health topics for you, a loved one, or maybe even a neighbor, even if that neighbor is a baby. Today, we talked about feeding, specifically bottle feeding, formula feeding, breastfeeding. We talked about introducing solid foods. We talked about how cow's milk plays into all of this as well. And we also talked about voiding, urine, pooping, all the good stuff. Anything else? Any last thoughts? Okay, great. Well, thank you for coming back for this episode. We're so happy you were here with us.
Me?
No, the audience.
Oh,
I'm happy you're here too, though.
thanks.
And so please do check out our podcast. Please share it with people who maybe are becoming new parents, or we're going to have episodes about high blood pressure coming up soon too. So share it with your loved ones who may be affected. And we're going to really break down how I approach having these conversations with people. And we look forward to having you come back and maybe leave a comment about things that you have questions about, so that we can make this more direct towards your needs and your goals for your health. And so with all of that, I'm Ed Dulesky.
I'm Nicole Arufo.
And we'll catch you next time. Stay healthy, my friends.
Bye.
This information may provide a brief overview of diagnosis, treatment, and medications. It's not exhaustive and is a tool to help you understand potential options about your health. It doesn't cover all details about conditions, treatments, or medications for a specific person. This is not medical advice or an attempt to substitute medical advice. You should contact a healthcare provider for personalized guidance based on your unique circumstances. We explicitly disclaim any liability relating to the information given or its use. This content doesn't endorse any treatments or medications for a specific patient. Always talk to your healthcare provider for complete information tailored to you. In short, I'm not your doctor.
I am not your nurse.
And make sure you go get your own checkup with your own personal doctor.